Hello and welcome back to the Board Hoovian YouTube channel. And yes, I am back, and if you can see how shiny my head is, it is very hot in the UK, which is why I've got my water on standby. But yeah, it is really hot, but also, if you've seen the title of the video, you'll realise something, and that is Random Reviews is back. If you cast your minds back a few months ago, I actually tried to reignite this series by finally reviewing Full Circle, and the experience was so draining for me that I completely forgot to do the follow-up video, which of course, if you watch the end of that video, the next review I had to do was this one, the two-parter from Series 1, Aliens of London and World War 3. And in the last couple of weeks since my Big Finish video, I've not had the time to do a Doctor Who video. I've been doing a lot of things before I leave uni for good, and I decided, you know what, this is one video which is very simple to do. I've just got to watch Doctor Who and then talk about it, which, is, pretty easy. So yeah, I watched the two-parter and now I'm ready to talk about it to you lot. So, if we talk about this, I'm going to talk about it first with part 1 and part 2, but I'm going to kind of mix between the two, showing my overall thoughts of the characters and the story as a whole. First of all, with the opening, I think it's a really good idea with Rose returning to Earth, but, her returning at the wrong time. It really shows the jeopardy of time travel and how, the Doctor making a small mistake can massively impact her life. And also kind of makes her world feel alien. The world is alien to Rose. It's not the world she left. That's interesting. Also, it's the kind of first instance of a companion returning to the home she left, because the family was never a big part of the characters, and this is the first real instance, just, apart from Rose. But Rose is her leaving. This is her actually coming back, which is never really something which they do in Doctor Who. I think Kamil Kajuri's performance as Jackie in this is absolutely superb. She does a brilliant job, really showing the massive distress, and it's a very different performance to Rose. I mean, if you don't look at the end of the story where she's in that massive panic, the way she talks with Rose, it's not a traditional mother-daughter dynamic. She's just chatting to her, talking about all the jobs she can do. Suddenly you see this kind of fear and this paternal figure, which you only see right at the end of Rose. And it's that kind of character which we see for the rest of Jackie, I feel. The massive care and protection over Rose. And, she doesn't necessarily hate the Doctor as a person, as his personality, but the fact that he's putting Rose in danger is constantly going to be a kind of, wall between those two as characters, until, what happens in a Series 2. There's some little touches in this which I really like, just like the scene where Rose is talking to the Doctor on the rooftop, saying how she's the only one in the world who knows about aliens, and then instantly, right on cue, the Slovene crash landing happens, hitting Big Ben. Iconic shot, really nice shot for New Who. And yeah, also after this you see the introduction of looking at the crash through the news, through American news, through BBC News. And I really like this touch in the RTD era, which I think we followed up on in certain instances. And I quite like it because it really makes it feel more real to us, because that's things we recognise from our world put into Doctor Who. And it just really grounds it in reality. Sure, these are really far off ideas, but it makes it feel more real to us because you feel like that's more what we would do in these scenarios we've watched the news. Now, let's talk about the Slovene. They haven't actually returned to the show in a main role since this two-parter, and I think that's a bit of a shame. Maybe the whole fighting thing is a bit off. I have mentioned I don't really like it that much, but it's explained in a scientific way, and it actually helps them understand how to defeat them, which actually gives it a reason to be there. Their plan, I think, is a really interesting one, and a pretty unique one. The idea of a fake invasion in order to kind of implode the planet by itself, and then sell it off as a profit. I like the idea that they're just like this, that they're a family and not a species, and they're like the space mafia. I've always liked that idea, and that's why I think they should come back, because you can really use that idea as, we're not here to kill you, we're here to make a profit. And sure, in this they are here to kill you, but I wish they focused on the profit bit, because that makes them a bit less generic, and I like that idea. If we're going to talk about characters, I have to talk about Harriet Jones. She is absolutely brilliant. This is her introduction into the show, and she's really lovely. She's introduced, she's very earnest, she's very soft-spoken. Amongst all of the panic that's going on, she just seems like the grandma of MPs, if that's, she doesn't seem harsh, and she comes across as, in this story the most humane politician in this two-parter, which is funny because she is the only human politician in this two-parter. Another character I think the story serves quite well is Mickey, because the last time we see him is in Rose, where he's cowering at kind of the shock of the TARDIS, which is a massive contrast to how Rose reacted, kind of making him seem very weak in comparison. But now a year's passed, he's grown up, he's more of an adult here, and he's had to deal with allegations because of Rose missing, and that's clearly impacted him. And also, he's done his research. He's the one who brings up Unit to the Doctor because he's done his research, and that shows he's shown impetus, he's grown as a character, and he's had to fend for himself to some degree, as everyone who supported him has kind of got distanced themselves from him. He even says he probably would have left Rose and gone for someone else, but he couldn't because everyone thought he'd murdered her. I mentioned Unit there, and it is brought up in this story and used to a tiny degree. We're not even seeing the logo or anything, or a base or nothing. The name is merely mentioned. Unit soldiers are seen briefly. And I like this. And they also mention the idea that the Doctor used to work for them. It is kind of addressing Classic Who, right, directly confronting it head on. Like, the Brigadier doesn't just show up or anything. But it's nice because it's, laying the groundwork, it's bridging the gap. That, these are the same show, but we're distancing ourselves from Classic Who for the time being. I say that, the episode after this two-parter is the, Return of the Daleks, so, yeah. One thing Part 1 does brilliantly is teasing us about the Savines' actual shape and size and what they look like. As you see, the whole blue light thing, they really stall on the fact that they're aliens. You know that there are aliens in their bodies as soon as you have them laughing in the cabinet room. That scene is so chilling because you realise, right, they're the threat. And that's the moment where that's revealed. And it's so sinister the way they're just laughing as if they've already won. And then eventually you see them kill the Colonel, I think, or the General or whatever. And all you see is Harriet's reaction and the noise of them basically skinning him, which is, really gory when you think about that. And to just kind of know that's happening, and then the reveal at the end where you see three at once all kind of reveal themselves and announce themselves as the Slitheen. And they are just, one thing I like about this is series 1 of Doctor Who, and the Slitheen were on a lot of posters, a lot of promotion for the reboot of Doctor Who, and I understand completely why, because it is just like Russell Davies going, right, let's just make a new monster and make them the most alien you can imagine. They are massive, they are disproportionate to us, they are like 7 foot tall, green, buggly eyes, they wink the wrong way, or blink the wrong way, and they've got like, 3 claws? Yeah, it is just, alien as you can imagine, and I like that he did this. Obviously, it's really hard back then to, make a suit which is practical. It's so weird, because when you see them using the actual prosthetic, they just are they're very stiff. And then suddenly when it's CGI, because they're just running super fast. And you go, that's, okay, how the hell are they how the hell is Rose and Harriet Jones getting away from Annette Badland's Savine character? Because literally it's just like, she's running like 10 times as fast as them when you see the CGI version. But that's a 2005 issue, so I'm not going to delve too much into that. I'm talking about the cliffhanger for Part 1. It is the first cliffhanger of the reboot, so it has a lot to build up to it. It's showing that this is still a part of the show, going into the sting, going to be continued. I think it's good because it's, giving you that kind of typical cliffhanger feel, going, how can the Doctor get out of this? But the resolution is done before the title sequence is even over, which is ridiculous. And that hasn't really happened in recent years. In recent years, what they've done is previously only happens before the title sequence, which is a better thing. For him to resolve it pretty much before the title sequence is a bit silly, and it's one of those things where you kind of have to shut your brain off into how he undoes what they do. He just takes off his tag and puts it on the Slitheen, and somehow knows that is going to instead electrocute all of the Slitheen at once. Don't know how that works. I don't know if they're supposed to be connected in that way, but who knows. Anyway, that saves the day of, Rose and Harriet who are in trouble, the Doctor who's in trouble, and Jackie who is in trouble at that point. Anyway, she still gets rescued by Mickey. One thing I do like about the cliffhanger, though, is the entire trap, which is set for the Doctor and all the experts in the room, is all being realised by the Doctor before it's even revealed. And I like this two-parter for that, because it really showcases the intelligence of the Doctor in this scene and another scene in Part 2, which I'll get onto later. Okay, I'm now going to focus completely on Part 2, World War 3. And I very much like this because it's a big change of pace. It's very closed location. You know, the only locations you really need to worry about are the House of Parliament and Nikki's flat. And the story is bouncing from those two destinations with a little, focus on the news and the descending UN new codes. Once the plan is revealed, you know it's an absolute race against time, because as soon as they get the codes, they are going to basically bomb the world. So the Doctor needs to resolve this, needs to resolve it completely, and he doesn't really know how. And while Harriet and Rose are deciding a plan, you notice the Doctor is absent. He's not really giving a solution. And the reason he's not giving a solution is because he's already realised it. But that solution is obviously going to potentially kill Rose and everyone in the room, except not him because he can regenerate. I like the moment where they are on the call together with Mickey, Jackie, Rose and the Doctor. As, Jackie kind of takes responsibility as a mother and questions the Doctor, saying, will she be safe? And the Doctor can't really answer her. He can't answer, obviously he answers her later, but the fact that he's silent shows he's never really had this situation before. He's so used to the fun of it, but he's now having to face up to what he's doing, and he's putting someone who has loved ones in dangerous situations repetitively. And, that's not, going to work out for the best for the future. She's constantly being put into danger, something's going to happen. And obviously, as people who have watched Series 2, we know this is, inevitable. One tiny moment, which I don't think people talk about, is when the Slitheen catch Rose way before they end up locked in the cabinet room. Harriet Jones offers herself to the Slitheen to kill her because Rose is younger. And, this is the first appearance of Harriet Jones. She's already willing to sacrifice herself, something which she eventually does in The Stolen Earth. So yeah, she's always had that kind of willingness to sacrifice herself for the greater good the entire time, in her run. And I do love Harriet Jones as a character. Some of her decisions, like the ones in Christmas Invasion, are flawed, but at the same time, all of her entire belief system is consistent. It is based on the betterment of the human race, the betterment of the people. So she is willing to be, violent. And you see that develop. Rose suggests nuking the Slitheen at the start of the story, and she doesn't quite agree with that. But as soon as she realises, but from the Doctor's perspective, that is the right solution, she agrees with it. She is very much in the firm belief that if the ends are the safety of the human race and the safety of her people, they are justified. The ends justify the means completely. And that is kind of what conflicts her with the 10th Doctor. And you can kind of see from her perspective, the first time she meets the Doctor, he blows up the Slitheen. The second time they meet up, she blows up the Sycorax. And she can't see the difference between the two. But the Doctor obviously has a different opinion. And I think there's a possibility to go on Harriet's side and not the Doctor's side. And also, if we talk about the Christmas Invasion, it's heavily irresponsible for the Doctor to change history. He says in this two-parter that, she's going to be the leader of the Golden Age. And by kind of ending her run early and changing history in the Christmas Invasion, he basically opens a power vacuum for the Master to take over. So yeah, I think I'll do a whole video on that at some point. But yeah, the Doctor does kind of cause Series 3 and 4 to happen to some degree. I'm finally going to get onto that scene with the Doctor, which just displays his intelligence, as obviously he's trying to just be slow with Mickey as he's kind of getting him through hacking into UNIT and the Navy and all sorts, and then the Slitheen get into Mickey's flat. And the scene where he's narrowing it down to their species, to their planet of origin, is fantastic. It just shows the speed, the knowledge, and all he needs are just the basic facts, and he can narrow it down. And some people might think the fact that vinegar or just anything basically acidic can destroy the Slitheen is a bit dumb, but I think it's an interesting take. It's something which we don't really see enough of in sci-fi. The fact they're a different alien race, they're built up of different things. Some things which are seen as normal to us would potentially be poisonous to them. And I think it's an interesting idea. Sure, it doesn't mean the Slitheen are very easy to deal with, but hey, let's just, next time, if they ever come back, maybe we do it on their world where, vinegar isn't just easy to just hang around and spray at them, If we go back on the Mickey thing, though, I do think it's a tiny bit stupid that the password for pretty much everything is Buffalo to hack into. It is a bit stupid. I have a tiny headcanon for it, though, which is that the websites themselves didn't put it there, and the Doctor hacked into them, basically meaning Buffalo is just a cheat code for every website because it saves time. That is just my headcanon. That the Doctor has basically just made sure Buffalo works on every website, no matter what. And I'm not going to give up that headcanon because I think it makes the most sense for the Doctor. It just seems like the kind of thing he would do. I really like this story as a whole. I think there are definite political kind of narratives here at play. Very much, it's at the time of airing, Tony Blair is in government. The war with Iraq is ongoing. The war on terror, and there is definitely, a comparison between this and what was going on in the world at the time. I don't really want to delve into that too much, but this is very much deliberate. And anyone who thinks Russell T Davies isn't going to delve into politics in his new run, yeah, I'm sorry, don't kid yourself. This is 4/5 episodes into his first run, and he's basically done, a mirror image of the war on terror. And I don't really want to go into something because I know it could potentially not be the best imagery for people to think of. But early on in this story, flying a spaceship crashes into a major monument. It crashed into Big Ben. Now, what other thing happened like that? It's actually kind of like, this is very much a mirror image of what was going on in the world at the time. It's hard to rank this two-parter because, there are two different stories. Do I prefer part 2 to part 1? Yes. The pacing is a lot better in part 2. Part 1 needs to get going, but that's what part 1 is. If you have a part 1 and part 2, part 1 needs to be slow to really set all the pieces in motion so part 2 can give you the best story it can get. I think part 1 is a 6 out of 10. It's fine, but it really takes a while to get going. But part 2, I would give an 8 out of 10. Overall, obviously, if you smash that bang in the middle, boom, you have a 7 out of 10. I think that's a fair judgment. It's a lot better than my ranking for Full Circle. Did not do well, that one. But yeah, I quite like this two-parter. I like this Levine. I think they should come back in some way. We've only had them in cameos for 2 seconds. And to be fair, they were in Boomtown, but it's just one. I want to see their race, The ending to this story is great. The whole looming over of Jackie and Mickey still being stuck there, missing Rose, and the next time they see them, the Doctor's in absolute mortal danger and she's trapped on Earth. It's really good. The focus on family is something I love about this era, and something I'm looking forward to from Russell in the future with Ruby Sunday, to see what her family and what her home is like. Anyway, if you like this review, comment below what you thought. Do you actually like this story? Would you rank it high? Would you rank it lower? What are your favourite bits of this story? Like the video if you enjoyed it. Ding the bell for notifications so you'll be notified every single time I upload. And yeah, I think that is it. I've been the Bored Whovian. I'll see you around.